Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 27th of May 2015, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host this afternoon, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Mike Robinson.
Afternoon.
Good to have you back, Mike. And behind the technical desk is Nick Green. Well, the weather report's quite interesting. We've got a lot of sunshine in Plymouth, a lot of sunshine in the rest of the country. Manchester, I believe, is a bit cloudy, and I think heavy cloud in Rhyl. So we're sorry that you're suffering there with a little bit of darkness in Rhyl. It will perk up. Well, before we get into the news today, just an advert for what follows. Over to you and water.
Yeah, so water, the new oil, is really the catchphrase that Mark Anderson came up with for this. So we're discussing the use of water and particularly the corporatisation of water, and that was supposed to be played out in yesterday's news programme, but unfortunately slight technical issue there. So we'll play it out straight after this programme.
Excellent. Well, the main theme, of course, is what's coming up in the
Well, indeed.
Queen's
so
speech.
The Queen's speech is happening, it's maybe already happened, or is happening at the moment. Prior to the Queen's speech, David Cameron made a statement. He said, "Behind this Queen's speech is a clear vision for what our country can be." I'm not sure who "our" is.
I think we're getting an idea, Mike.
Yeah. A country of security and opportunity for everyone at every stage of life, and in fact, later on, we'll see the opportunity for people over the age of 60 to take their own lives if they wish. But here she is, arriving, not today, obviously, because this is an older photograph, but arriving at the Houses of Parliament, not to the House of Commons, of course, because she has never actually set foot in that particular place. So what are the main deals with this? Well, the EU referendum fiasco is going to be one of them. The policing bill. So Theresa May has apparently said that she's going to ban the use of police cells for emergency detention of mentally ill people. So they're going to go straight into
psychiatric units,
never to be seen again. She also intends to extend what she's calling police-led prosecutions. That's maybe a good thing. I don't know yet. We'll see. And overhaul the complaint system. But the other thing that's mentioned is a change in the use of bail. So what does that mean? Less availability of bail for people, or more draconian bail conditions? We have
longer periods on bail,
yeah,
probably in accordance with the Scottish model of government as experienced by Robert Greene.
Indeed. Further Scottish devolution, of course. English MPs to have more say, allegedly, over measures that only affect England. This, of course, is the breakup of the Union. And that's how he's keeping the country together, let's not forget. A new counter-extremism bill aimed at tackling radicalisation. Now, of course, this is being sort of, on the surface at least, being described with regard to Islamic radicalisation, but in fact the scope of it is not simply Islamic, it's all kinds of radicalisation, with particular focus on domestic extremism, non-violent domestic extremism.
Which would be us, Mike.
Yes, indeed. It's really an attack on free speech. And a schools bill. So what's the schools bill all about? It's going to, quote, deliver better schools with more radical measures to ensure young people leave education with the skills they need. So this is going to be, I'm quite certain, this is going to be more citizenship programs, more leadership programs, this kind of stuff. We don't need to worry how to read or how to count. We need to know how to be leaders, and we need to know, how to be good citizens. That's the key points there, I think.
If I can just interject, there was an article I read today, which is some university professor saying that children shouldn't use erasers, because they should be quite happy to admit their mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, so let's teach the children how to make mistakes.
Don't fix the mistakes.
No.
Okay, the next one then is Human Rights Act repeal bill. Now, of course, this is one area where I'm kind of focused, because I would be absolutely delighted to see the Human Rights Act repealed. And because, of course, if you repeal the Human Rights Act, you remove the infringement of our common law inalienable rights that are based on the principle that we have unlimited rights, except those which are specifically denied by legislation. So replacing the Human Rights Act would be a great thing, in my opinion. We shouldn't be focused on this European legislation, which is based on the principle that we have no rights except for the rights that they give us on a piece of paper. Now, the fact that that there's even a discussion of the repealing of the Human Rights Bill should be setting alarm bells off to those who support the idea of a Human Rights Bill, because if a Human Rights Act happens to say that we have the right not to be attacked by our government, they can just come along and repeal that as they wish. That goes totally against the British Constitution, which is based on the idea of protection, liberty, and inalienable rights. So it's about time we started campaigning for that instead of campaigning for a Human Rights Act. Communication and Data Bill, well, what can we say? It's a return of the Snoopers Charter, and of course they are intending ultimately to make it illegal for people to use encryption, and that's one of the things they intend to do. I'm just going to say to everybody, we should be using encryption at every opportunity. Send your shopping list to each other in an encrypted form. If you want to deal with this problem, use the facilities that are available to you more rather than less, and don't give them the opportunity to actually make this illegal. And what's next on the list? Housing Bill. Right, okay. So Housing Bill, this is more right to buy, the right to buy. In fact, we're hearing that this is going to be extended, aren't we, Brian? In fact, they're going to privatise the housing associations.
Yeah, this is definitely in the cards. So the housing association was used as, my opinion, as the soft tool to pull housing away from local authorities, to take away council housing stock into a soft housing association. Now they do the next step, which is to use private sector to take the housing away from the association. So you will have a landlord who will be a ruthless, profit-making landlord.
Indeed. And in fact, I believe that they're going to start means testing people to discover whether they can actually afford to be in the private letting.
Maximum length of the contract proposed will be of the lease will be 5 years, and they'll means test you, so they want to have a look at your bank statements, etc., to see whether you perhaps have got enough money stashed away to be able to afford rents in the private sector anyway. So this is massive intrusion on people's personal finances.
Okay, and finally the NHS bill, which of course we don't need to say anything about because that's simply going to be further privatisation. So that's that.
It's all looking good.
Queen's speech, looking fantastic. What can we say about it?
Well, we just remind people that, of course, our Queen has completely betrayed the country by accepting mediatisation, which means that she's given away her powers to enable her to keep the privileges and the wealth, as seen by the gold coach there.
So she is a benefits cheat?
In a way, yeah.
Right, and one final point, of course, it is interesting to note that there is apparently no opposition to this Queen's speech. The Labour Party absolutely silent on the issue. Sorry, no opposition isn't true. That's not quite true. It's the Scottish nationalists that are providing the opposition, and this again is part and parcel of this keeping the country together by splitting it apart, giving the Scottish nationalists an opportunity to appear to be statesmanlike. They're providing the only opposition, and therefore what we really need is separate governments and so on. It's just more reinforcement of the destruction of the British Constitution.
The strengthening hand is the Scottish model of government, which we hope to be talking about later in the week with David Scott.
Okay, moving on then. This opinion piece in the FT today, a new global order of cities. Urban centres shape the world. Right, if there's a problem with Brian's mic, Nick, just put the technical problem slide up and we'll deal with it, if you want to do that.
We'll keep going.
Okay, right, so Global Cities. So this is by Ian Daalder. And Ian Daalder, born in The Hague, he served as the president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. He was the U.S. permanent representative on the Council for NATO. The U.S. permanent representative for NATO. How does somebody born in the Netherlands end up being a U.S. representative on NATO?
Well, this is globalisation, Mike. We've got these key people drift around between countries. Stephen Kinnock's classic, isn't it? 1 minute he's British, the next minute he's operating in Russia, married to the Danish Prime Minister. This is the global elite families coming together.
Yeah, okay, so Ivar Daalder is also a specialist, sorry Nick, just bring that one back, specialist in European security, member of staff of the UN Security Council, during the administration of Bill Clinton, and was one of the foreign policy advisors to Barack Obama during his 2008 campaign. So clearly a globalist and pushing the idea of the new global. So what does he say here? The important characteristics of the 21st century is the rise of cities. The world may obsess over whether a Chinese century is replacing an American one, but the real action is not in nations, but their urban centres. For the first time in human history, more people now live in cities than in rural areas. By 2050, 6.5 billion people, 2/3 of all humanity, will live and work in cities. In 1950, fewer than 1 billion did so. But not all cities are equal. Global cities, leaders in commerce, the arts and education, rise above the rest. They have the scope, ambition and clout to shape not just the world's economy, but also its ideas, its culture, its policies and its future. So there you go. So who is driving this? Well, here's one of the organisations, Local Governments, ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. And of course, it's Common Purpose. So here we go. Global Leader Experience in Montreal. They're exactly talking about this issue. The Common Purpose. This is the Common Purpose, this Agenda 21, put everybody in cities. Of course, it's Common Purpose and all its affiliated leadership programs, such as CSC Leaders. And we highlighted this back in March or April, talking about the fact that CSC Leaders 5-day conference this year being held in the United Kingdom, absolutely focusing on global and in brackets smart cities. Of course, here's two of the people that were speaking at the CSC Leaders event. So,
Princess Anna, is that Boris?
That is Boris, yes.
Right,
of course,
okay.
Boris being
sorry.
Yeah.
He's going to head, of course, isn't he? He's going to sort of head up one of the leading global cities, which is going to be London.
Indeed.
City region, to be
Well,
correct.
he's only, although only for another few months, because of course he's an MP now. He can't do both jobs, can he?
Well, not unless you do as you please.
Yeah. Anybody that wants to understand this a bit more, please do get on the UK Column website, look at the Multiple Paths Lead to One World Government article, and in fact one of the other, all of the other One World Government, One World Governance series of articles that Martin Edwards and occasionally I have helped produce these. It's a fantastic series of articles. Do read it, and then you begin to understand what this is all about.
Very dangerous people, and the key theme is that they're futurists. They work on the basis that everything in the future will be okay. They don't live now, dealing with the problems now, just deal with transforming the world to get into the future. In the future, everything will be fine. And then, of course, we've got individuals like this gentleman from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and he says that in the future the rich will become godlike cyborgs, the wealthy will transform into a new type of human within 200 years. And he's really boasting about this. Most people, he says, are just not happy being ordinary individuals. They want to transform their bodies, they want to become more powerful, and we can do it by creating cyborgs. So not a lot of spirituality in that man. And what are we seeing in the future? We're going to have these godlike, wealthy people. They won't even be in a human body. This is, I'm going to use the word scary in a light-hearted way, but these are very, very dangerous individuals because, of course, they don't care what they do to get to that new futuristic position. Well, if we jump to reality, let's hop into the West London Synagogue, because it's been topped up with, well, we've called them the Dirty Dozen. This is the people assembling in order to remember the good works of Leon Britton. Quite remarkable article. Apologies to the Daily Mail. I should have just put their logo on this. This was their story. What was the paper saying? Well, of course, they were piling into the synagogue to remember this man. The headline said he'd lost one paper. He just lost a paper, something to do with
nothing
abuse.
important.
No. Later on, they did mention a dossier, but it was confusing. But let's have a look at the great and good who shouldered their way into the West London Synagogue. Well, the leader here was Ken Clarke, good man to have. Nick Clegg,
One of Leon Britton's boys, of course.
Yes, one of Leon Britton's European boys, groomed for the EU. William Hague, of course, he's a man that couldn't wait to get in. Lord Lawson, another upstanding member of society. Jonathan Aiken, well, absolutely upstanding member of society.
Because he's never been in prison?
No.
No.
So Malcolm Rifkin, well, of course, we remember him because he was recently sacked from his position of chair of the Defence Intelligence Committee because of dubious dealings with a fictitious Chinese company. You couldn't really make it up, but obviously upstanding moral member of society. Lord Lamont, well, I think the picture says it all. This was an interesting one. Stanley Johnson, who's the dad for Boris Johnson. So he was keen to get his seat on one of the pews. David Mellor, I think he was in the press recently for using foul language to a taxi driver. He was upset, so another good man to get in there. Lord Patton, well, of course, he did all the good works with the BBC.
And I mean, he did all he could to expose the Jimmy Savile scandal.
Oh, yes. I mean, apparently he was exhausted, the amount of work he did to get the truth about Jimmy Savile out. And this gentleman I found very intriguing. Here we are. We've got Simon Jenkins, and he's the boss of the, and with that the name goes out, of
National Trust.
National Trust, thank you, Mike. So fascinating. Many people talking about big changes to the National Trust, but while these guys were in the London synagogue, let's remember.
Oh, you forgot Douglas Hurd. How
dear.
could you?
Oh dear, he surprised me a bit. He popped out. There he is, number 12, another good man, Douglas Hurd. While these men were rubbing shoulders, of course, where was the child abuse victim, survivor, as Melanie would prefer to be called? Well, Melanie Shaw, of course, has done nothing apart from being born into an abusive family. And whereas this disgusting government put her, they've put her in prison for telling the truth about child abuse. And remember, of course, that's a profit-making prison that can make money out of her suffering. So I just thought, what a tremendous collection of, well, everything: morality, kindness, honesty. There we are. Well, if you approve of that, be sure to pop into the West London synagogue, and you can mix with that sort of people. Well, let's remind ourselves of the truth coming out in the Mirror. All MPs lie. Not our words, but the words of other members of the establishment. And we are pointing out that, of course, once we know that our MPs lie to us, everything's possible. So we shouldn't be surprised that the Telegraph here, picking up on the fact that expenses information and sex scandal information has suddenly been deleted from MPs' Wikipedia pages, they are saying by computers inside Parliament. Now, should we believe this? Well, let's look back and remind ourselves that it was the Mirror, the Daily Mail, that exposed that David Cameron had been removing material from the Conservative website because it could embarrass them over what they promised and what they failed to achieve. We pointed out this was the same action as Kim Jong-un from North Korea. He was busy wiping the internet of information. So clear parallels. Let's remember Francis Maude, opaque Minister for Transparency. His cabinet office was busy covering up dirty deals with Common Purpose. And that brings us back, of course, to where we started, which is basically this lot are just liars. Well, there we are, truth coming up to the surface. So what does the state want to cover up? We've seen that Lord Patton was one of the members there remembering Leon Britton. Well, of course, they all want to cover up child abuse. So let's bring you back to BBC Radio 4. This was the gentleman Aranovich, who was busy debunking the myths of satanic child abuse, ritualistic child abuse. He's written a book about conspiracy theories. But we just wanted to remind you, this is the same Radio 4 that when the abuse of young people at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, including pretty vile sexual abuse, was reported to their own reporter, Nicola Stambridge. She told us in a telephone conversation that her Radio 4 boss had pulled her off the case. So Pretty easy to see, isn't it? And we'll just remind you of the words of this gentleman, ex-Jersey Senator Stuart Sivray. He said it all: governments love child abuse. No other criminal activity gives such control over those who commit it. So there we are. It's becoming more and more clear that the government absolutely desperate to cover up the scale of child abuse. And of course, we are continuing to report the acrimony in the Metropolitan Police, where police officers are threatening other police officers in order to stop people talking about particularly the Hampstead abuse case. Well, where would the government have us go? Well, it's into death cults, and the Telegraph here boldly promoting necromancy to young people. So a quite extraordinary and disgusting article, which is promoting a Ouija board craze, according to the Telegraph, called Charlie Charlie. This is getting young people to delve into the occult. It's necromancy, and as people with a proper spiritual background will say, dangerous, very dangerous stuff. Where's it going to take us, Mike?
Well, the other aspect of the death cult, here we are, Lord Falconer and Norman Lamb on the left there, of course, and they've relaunched their campaign for murdering old people. I'm sure they would disagree, but of course that's tantamount to where it's going to end up. A campaign Falconer has been trying to get legislation through for quite a number of years, but failed to get it through in the last Parliament. Now he is Labour's Shadow Justice Secretary, and he said it was completely wrong that a terminally ill person should not be able to choose when they die, I suppose, subject to safeguards, he says. Well, of course, those safeguards may be there on day one, but where will they be 20 years later? That remains to be seen. Now, he was Lord Chancellor under Tony Blair, and he was advocating prescription drugs being made available to people so that they could end their lives, subject, he stressed, to safeguards. So that's good. Under his proposals, 2 doctors have to be in agreement that a patient has 6 months or less to live, and they have to be sure that there's a firm intention to undertake assisted dying. Now, that has to be agreed by 2 doctors. I don't think they had this problem in Germany in the 1930s, but anyway. And of course, he was using this story here to promote this thing. So the mainstream media absolutely falling for the trap in promoting assisted dying. Where's it going to happen first?
Scottish model of government, I think, Mike.
Scottish model of government. So what's this going to do? What this is going to do is MSPs are going to get the opportunity to vote on this. And let's say, for the sake of argument, it goes through, which I'm sure it is, because I believe it's policy. Of course, we're going to end up in the situation where in Scotland we have this ruling, and in England we don't. There's going to be ramped up in the media once again. How ridiculous it is. In one part of the United Kingdom, the rules are different to somewhere else, and we just need to get on with full devolution, full separation, perhaps. But what is behind it all? Well, let's not be unsure about this. It is always the banks. It always comes back to the banks. The world is drowning in debt, warns Goldman Sachs, but it's aging populations that are causing this debt. Aging populations, okay?
So the solution is probably get rid of the old people.
Get rid of the old people. This is Goldman Sachs and HSBC getting on this bandwagon, of course. Debt levels, you see, have been caused by there being too many people in the world. So let's get rid of some of them.
Yeah, and what better place to go for advice than Goldman Sachs Bank?
Indeed.
The sort of place Julia Middleton would go. Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs. Yeah.
Because Goldman Sachs are really keen to see protections, for, limitations on this kind of, aren't they?
We're nearly lost for words, Mike, so we'll leave it there. I think, if you see your profits being attacked, then let's get rid of the old people. It absolutely makes sense. Well, if this sort of agenda is going to be put into effect, then clearly we need to make sure that we have the right judges in post. So let's have a look at the Independent here, which is pointing out that this gentleman, Robert Jay, who was one of the famed barristers in the press during the Leveson inquiry, is going to become one of Britain's senior judges. Jobs for the boys comes to my mind, but whether this is true or not. So we're interested in this because this is in the press today, effectively. But of course, it was talked about way back in 2013. So after Brian Leveson had done so well in trying to get control of Britain's press and media, this is the key man here, this is Robert Jay. Back in 2013, it was reported that this guy was going to become a High Court judge. Let's remind ourselves of Leveson, wonderful event. There was a bit of a love story going on between two barristers on different sides of the bench, as it were. And Shami Chakrabarti got her face in there. Good common purpose lady. We're not quite sure what the relationship was with the Leveson inquiry. And this is, of course, what came out of it. 5.4 million spent. The police started to adopt secret arrests. Newspapers in chaos. Hacked off continues the pressure. The police became fearful of the press. And the common purpose continues. And it's still continuing. So we just thought, how did this gentleman, Robert Jay, get appointed? So we did a little bit of research for you. So here's Courts and Tribunals judiciary page from the website, and here it gives you a lot of good information. It says, since April 2006, judicial appointments have been the responsibility of an independent Judicial Appoints Commission. Before this, appointments were made on the recommendations of the Lord Chancellor, who was a government minister. So that was a pretty one-way system. You've got a Lord Chancellor, and he simply appoints the judges. But under the new system, it's now independent, except that the Lord Chancellor has a power of veto.
No, it's a very limited power of veto.
Oh, it's a limited. You veto, you can partly veto.
How do you partly veto?
Not sure, but it is independent. So don't worry, these judges are all appointed by independent people. Well, who are the independent people? Let's have a look at the Judicial Appointments Commission. So here is all about us. I encourage you to go and read it. And on the right is a list of the current commissioners. What I couldn't find on the website was who actually appointed the independent commission. So we've emailed them to ask if they could tell us who exactly appoints the independent commission, which independently appoints the judges with a veto from the Lord Chancellor, who I believe is Mr. Gove.
Yep.
Who has proudly boasts that he doesn't really work for Britain. His loyalty is with the Zionist regime in Israel. So very interesting news in Britain. But not to worry. Let's remember that it was David Cameron who says we must get a new press media watchdog. At the same time as he was saying that, of course, he was withholding his own emails from Leveson. So this is definitely futurist global elite. And if we may just blow a little bit of the UK column trumpet, it was UK column's work that actually took the lid off Common Purpose's work to drive the Leveson inquiry. So I think we're allowed to say well done the UK column. That's probably going to shock a few people, but I think we can do it. So we've got an independent judiciary making decisions on all sorts of crime. We're in a good place, Mike, I think.
Brilliant. Now, of course, people trafficking increasingly in the news for some reason in this, because it's been happening for generations, but for some reason it's hitting the news. But this story piqued my interest just because G4S is apparently implicated in this. Now, in fairness to G4S, all that has been alleged so far is that one of their employees was involved in this, and how much knowledge the company itself had, that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, the G4S is among, a member of staff from G4S is among 13 security staff charged with organising a human trafficking gang in Vienna airport. You know, this is, there's just huge profits being made from this. You do have to ask the question, if humans are being trafficked, are drugs being trafficked at the same time? We know that drug trafficking is what's keeping the financial system afloat at the moment. I would imagine this is part of the same racket.
Well, I just point out, of course, the Hampstead children said that babies were being trafficked, and they talked about who was trafficking the babies, but a single judge, presumably independently appointed, Judge Porphyry, said no, everything those children said, utter nonsense. But you're now saying we've got people trafficking going on,
Yeah.
albeit Vienna Airport. And G4S also implicated in torture at Guantanamo Bay, I believe. But it's probably okay.
Now, Judge, just before we move on, Judge Palfrey, of course, was involved in the Holly Gregg cover-up as well, wasn't she?
She was one of the lead judges, yeah. But of course, nothing to see there. Police didn't investigate, so no crime.
No
and let's make sure that Robert Greene, who tried to expose things, was put in prison, presumably under the Scottish model of government. So that's where it's happening, north of the border. But credit where it's due. We just like to, say this. There's a Telegraph article pointing out that the Pope doesn't appear happy over the Irish vote on gay marriage. So big article from the Telegraph on this. We're just going to add to that here's GCHQ using public money to light up the building in the famous rainbow colours. That is the Rainbow Bridge to the new golden age, the futurist ideal. So we'd like to know who made the decision that GCHQ could become politically active in promoting social change. Is that really the remit of one of our intelligence agencies, to become politically active? I think it's a pretty worrying thing. And we'll just end a little bit of credit where we think it may be due. Big article in the Mail about this lady, Denise Robertson, who's written quite a lengthy article detailing child stealing by the state. I wonder where she got that title from. But she's talking about all the cases of social services taking children. And I picked out just this paragraph because I found it very, very interesting. She said, "These parents are neither inadequate or unintelligent. I remember having lunch with a fellow professional who said glibly, but of course things like this wouldn't happen to you and me because we're articulate enough to defend ourselves against injustice." To which Ms. Robertson said, "I had to tell him he was completely wrong, for professional people are every bit as likely to have their children taken away." Absolutely spot on the button. We know that social services taking children away from military people, they're going for police children now. They are so arrogant, they're going to go for anybody. So if you think that because you're a barrister or you're a senior member of the armed forces, your children are safe, I'm afraid the answer is absolutely not. And very shortly we'll be showing an interview. Sorry, not today, but in the near future, we'll be showing an interview where a gentleman explains the massive fraud and corruption that he's come across in the so-called family courts, with an independently appointed judge, of course.
Yeah.
Where does that leave us? Water.
So straight after this programme, we'll be talking water. And apologies again that it didn't quite work yesterday.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us. We will be back same time tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.